LinkedIn Echo Chamber. This is ML's Like Teen Spirit. We're back with Luke. Luke, how are you doing?
Very good. Pleased to see you again, John.
Yeah, good. Still in Mexico?
Still in Mexico City, yeah. Strangely.
Okay. I was hoping you'd move to Brazil so I could get a different pin in my map. But okay, maybe as your business expands, you could consider that. Or not. Okay, Luke, I invited you back because you've been with us last time, telling us about your life in the creative industries and your AI adoption, what you were doing with your businesses, and how you were really just trying to do personal growth in the middle of business growth. So I remember, starting newsletters in this space, trying to build communities through events, and just make sure your business thrives. At a couple of points in that discussion, of course, we nearly got into the future and ethics and some of these topics. So I'd like to discuss them today because they're real hot topics. Ethics. I feel like probably weekly I maybe read one piece somewhere that is a bit like so and so might be suing so and so, or there's you'll have to help me with the name, Luke. I think I read about some
Elon,
yeah,
Sam Altman.
yeah. Exactly. I think I even might have messaged you that I read about some platform or other that has been launched to somehow protect artists' work and creative work. So I can't remember what it was. What was this example?
I think it's not Moonshine, Moonshade.
Right. We'll drop an image of it. When we edit this, we'll drop an image over or something. It's some platform that's there to kind of try to protect creative work against being consumed by AI and replicated in 12 million different ways. So there's all these different kind of competing forces around ethics, and I wanted you to try and explain it to at least give your opinion on how you think it will start to play out. When we did the prep for this, you kind of said, well, I think it's in these three different areas. So I'd just like you to present them, please, and then go a bit deeper onto each point. What were these three areas you were thinking of?
Cool. Well, I think there's 3 points really, and it's going to be ethics, it's going to be like productivity, and then the wider society. I mean, ethically, AI is super controversial in the design industry, and that's because it comes down to the training data. So all these models only exist because they scrape the internet, and then all these artists' images were used to train the data, and 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 that's just super controversial, really, because this model is kind of replacing artists. It's recreating their work, but they're not getting the credit or the payment. So it's double edged. It's kind of replacing them, and they're not getting the value that they are creating for another company. In terms of productivity as well, like now if we take image generation, for example, and there's lots of other use cases, but if we take image generation, now you can sit at a computer and type something. Like, you don't need to go to a location and shoot a shot. So do we as creatives pass that productivity saving onto the client? Like, it took me less time, so it costs less. But if it costs less, then I need to find more clients to survive. So my personal view is that we as creatives need to stick to a value-based pricing. So, we're still solving the same problem. The result is the same for the business. So the cost should stay the same, irrespective of kind of how long that took you. I mean, they're still paying for your expertise. And then kind of the other societal impact that kind of links into is that ultimately that might work for a little bit, but someone's going to undercut you. Prices will fall, productivity will increase. In the last video, we spoke about my fears of kind of like AI automating the creative industry. So, instead of me writing a prompt and working with it and going through a process, AI writes its own prompts, creates its own videos, pushes them out to people, optimizes them. And I think we'll see this more and more. It's almost inevitable as AGI, develops, then we're going to see a lot of job losses. And that's at what level of unemployment does society start to rebel? Is it like 10% unemployment, 20, 30? If AIs replace your job and you can't work, how does society adapt? And then we get into universal basic income, We get into how does capitalism even work when there's no human labor, when AI is cheaper than, you can physically do something with the robots, or it's quicker and cheaper than you can think about and more intelligent. So that's the long-term kind of.
Damn, Luke, capitalism and universal basic income. God, I think we need to do a 4-hour video discussion with 500 other people to get down to, and a few bottles of wine to get into that topic. Great. Well, look, there's tons to think about. Can I ask a question? I'm going to be a bit green with all this. So, text generation I use quite a lot for just ideas, and that's where I start. Coding partner, got me out of all kinds of trouble a lot of times. Now, the image generation, can I try and create a parallel? So I recall reading about the New York Times suing OpenAI. I read the lawsuit, I looked at the docs, and I saw how they'd, OpenAI came back and said, hey, you've built a super prompt that is super unique, and it happens to expose the data from the language model, almost word for word, aside from a couple of words. And OpenAI indicated that, the New York Times would have required someone with significant expertise and a brute force attack to reach that point. It was not some random dude doing a prompt and getting an article back. On these image generation models, how close can you get to just going, hey, give me the Mona Lisa? Like, crap example, I know, but in terms of generating almost identical art, or art that is, I don't know what, hard for an expert to tell the difference. How close can you get to those things? Is it just like that, or is it just sort of a little bit obvious that it's, the model is 90% of the effect and there's a bit of randomness? How would you describe it?
It's yeah.
Okay, I found this on the web, Briz. Check it out.
Sorry, Siri thought I was speaking to her. Do a little pause so you can edit it.
Yep.
It is an interesting question. You touched on a couple of different points. Like the Mona Lisa, for example, could AI recreate it? No, because it tends to mix artistic styles. So it might have kind of like some brush strokes in one place, and then it'd have like a watercolor effect in another area of the same image. So it's kind of not that good. But in terms of copyright, like, does that matter? Mona Lisa is not the best example, but one point is if we take it to screenshots. So when Midjourney released the alpha model, it's all about weighting and probability and things, but you could prompt it to say screen capture from halfway through the Avengers movie, and it would give you an image that was slightly different. Like the characters had like slightly moved pose, but it was the same characters in almost identical pose, and it was just recreating this work. And that would, to most people, that would break copyright, like intellectual property aside. Like, it's their characters and they own them, obviously you can't use them. But the problem becomes like, what happens when you write a prompt and it's an artist the other side of the world, and you've not met them, you don't know their artwork, and it's really, really close to their work. So you're breaking their copyright without even knowing it. And that's difficult to know. But I think Midjourney have mostly solved that, but how would we know? That's the thing with the design of their model.
Yeah, right. Let's get into the ethics of the training data, actually, because we've brought up OpenAI and the New York Times. Tell us a perspective on, the ethics around who owns the training data, and like what's kind of your opinion plus creative industry, temperature check on that. How is everyone feeling about that?
It's super divisive. Like if you're a concept artist and the AI is taking your job, obviously you're going to be against it because it's trained on your work and it's recreating work like yours. But this is one of the reasons that I've tried my best, and it's still an ongoing process, to understand how these models work. So when it comes down to copyright law, it's easy. Does this image look like that image? Yes or no? We can all understand that. But when it comes to a model being trained on copyrighted data, and then storing it in a different format. Like it's not storing the JPEG, it's storing like a representation of that, and then recreating that. And it's complex and it's an ongoing legal issue. But what are my thoughts on it? My thoughts are kind of, they're more pragmatic. Like, is it morally right or wrong? I don't know, but it's here to stay. I think we can be sure of that. So yeah, I try and I'm leaning into it and using it and trying to do it in ways that I don't believe through a process that it would identically copy another artist's work.
And last point, we've got just a couple more minutes. Sorry to finish on a bit of a negative, but the job loss part was quite eye-opening because you spoke so freely about it. But you started to say, like, is it 10%? Is it 5%? I don't know if that was just an example or if you believe it could be that impactful. Would you care to estimate a time frame over which this impact might start to manifest, just based on, like, you know, how you're doing your job and what you're hearing in your industry? I don't want to worry everyone out there, but are you talking about something that's in, you know, a 12-month horizon, or over 5 years you think it might be like this? Like, what are we really talking about here?
I would say in 12 months, the tools that creative use will be completely different. I mean, we've seen snippets of it when OpenAI released their Sora model. Like it's very realistic. Like if I don't need to go to a location and shoot that, like that's gonna, economically, people are gonna be like, oh, I don't have to go there, you know. So we're not at the point where it absolutely recreates reality, but maybe in 12 months from now we will be. Maybe it's 2 years. But I think these timelines are kind of very short, and I can't really predict how that's going to affect the industry. Does it create new jobs? I don't see how. I can see how it replaces a lot, or just becomes more efficient. You know, I can do more in more time, but then you need more customers. Is that going to be a reality? Very difficult question to answer.
Well, what we do, Luke, is we just talk again in 12 months. I'll remind you of these facts, and we'll see how it's going. So, Luke, thanks for taking us through that. We're going to hit time. You know, that was fascinating. You have taken this interview into a place that I haven't been before. So we've been into, you know, high unemployment within a 12 to 24 month time frame, universal basic income. You know, hinted at discussion about capitalism. I really wasn't expecting that, but this has been a deep one, dude. So thank you for taking us through it. And ladies and gents, this has been ML's Like Teen Spirit.